Mike, thanks for that live report. Last night's attack marking the deadliest mass shooting in the country this year. And now our team coverage continues with one Portland resident with Western Mass ties expressing fear as the manhunt continues now into its second day. Western Mass News reporter Maria Wilson spoke with him earlier tonight, and she joins us now live in studio with what he says it's like in Maine right now. Maria.
That's right, Chris. He used words like horrifying and shocking to describe what happened in his home state. He says it's difficult to process that something like this has happened so close to home. Following Wednesday's night's shootings, when a gunman opened fire at a bowling alley and restaurant in Lewiston, Maine, killing at least 18 people, residents in southern Maine have been on edge.
It's been horrifying, and certainly it does seem like hard to believe this is really happening in our state. I know that shootings have been rampant across the country, but it's never happened here.
Sam Chipman lives in Portland, the state's largest city, and about 35 miles south of Lewiston. The Western New England University graduate recalling for us the moments when he first learned about the shooting.
I was with a close friend of mine, and we were just horrified. The news got worse and worse, and a lot of people were injured. We were all kind of in a state of panic and a lot of fear, for sure.
Chipman says following Wednesday's shootings, the tension throughout Maine has been palpable.
It seems like a ghost town. Portland is usually really vibrant.
And Chipman says that he is hopeful that amid the terror and chaos his home state is now facing, that there will be brighter days ahead. He is confident that the people of Maine will come together and prove to be stronger and more resilient for it. But he does believe that that first step in healing begins with the suspect's capture. Reporting live in studio, Maria Wilson, Western Mass News.